All right, guys. First thing we can do is disassembly. Make sure your firearm is clear, no ammunition is in the room or next to you, magazine is dropped. First thing we can do is take out the slide. After that, take out your recoil spring assembly and the barrel. All right, we're done. Boom. Next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna take off the receiver and the frame. We're gonna take out the trigger housing pin, trigger pins, and locking block. So right now, taking out the pins. Next step's locking block. Gonna pry it up. That's done. After that is the trigger housing. Take that out. With that housing came the slide stop lever. Keep everything nice and neat. After that, we're gonna clean. All right, we're not gonna go too crazy. I'm just gonna wipe everything down. So first thing I am wiping down is going to be my trigger housing pin and trigger pin. Just using a white cloth. Just getting all the carbon, grease, dirt off of there. I did fire this pistol beforehand. So now I'm just going to wipe it down before I actually do the polish. Right there, we're going to be cleaning the slide stop lever. Make sure you get in all those nicks and crannies. So I typically like to use just a white cloth, some, what is that called? A pipe cleaner, as you've seen, getting through the little tight spaces, and a brush. That's your basics that you're going to use. All right, I'm spraying down the pins with some bore cleaner just to help me break down that residue, wiping it off clean. Doing the same with the locking block. Spraying it down. I'm going to use that brush to get it extra clean, knock off all that debris, get through all those channels, those holes. Use a pipe cleaner. Take your time, no big rush. All right, we're done with that. Slide stop levers next. Spraying it down. Going to use a brush. After that, wipe it down, use some pipe cleaners. Same old repetition. All right. So I'm just doing this before we do the polish because, like I said before, I was shooting this pistol beforehand, so I have all this buildup. And if I did the polish, I don't want to be just polishing dirt everywhere, all right? So I'm just going to give it a quick cleaning. So now I'm spraying down the receiver. I'm going through all the channels. Make sure I rub it all down. Give it a good scrub. After I'm done breaking up the debris, wipe it down with a white cloth. Make sure you get in there through the mag well. There you go, just like that. Wipe it down. Dirt does accumulate through there. All right, next is going to be your slide. So first thing with the slide is going to be the extractor decompressor. It's right there. You're going to push it down with your little fire, what is that? A little punch I have. And then with that, the slide cover plate should come right off. With that coming off should be the firing pin. There goes the extractor. Then with that extractor, it's going to be your fire pin safety. That's it for your slide. Too easy, right? Yep, that's right. All right, yeah, more bore cleaner. I know I'm spraying too much, using too much. I don't care. Scrub it down, wipe it down. If you have an optic on your pistol, be careful not to spray your lens. You don't want your glass to be damaged, all right? So be careful with that. Right now, I am scrubbing down my extractor. Giving that fire pin safety a good cleaning. I took the spring out to make sure I could clean inside of there. Be careful not to lose that spring. It's tiny. It can go flying across the room, and you will hate your life if you cannot find it. All right, yeah. So next we're doing the extractor decompressor and the spring. I don't take mine apart. I just scrub it down with the brush. After the brush, I do this little thing right here with all my springs where you bend the pipe cleaner around the spring and you just twist the spring around it, and it cleans it pretty good. Next one's going to be your firing pin. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to push down that spring on your firing pin, and then you're going to be trying to take off those spring cups, the little plastic things at the end. Be careful, there's 2 of them, they're split in half. With that is going to be the spring itself and then the spacer sleeve. All right, give your firing pin a good spray, same as everything else. Just scrub it down, wipe it down, good to go. All right, that's your little spacer sleeve right there. Just polymer, plastic. Just get inside the grooves, make sure it's clean. Again, with the pipe cleaner, just get in between the springs, give it a good twist. Boom, done with that. Now, reassembly of that. I just like to reassemble it so I don't lose any pieces. And I like to use my slide to put my firing pin on, and I push down with the spring, and with the spring down, I like to put the little spring cups in there. Like I said, be very careful, because if you lose grip, one is going to go flying across the room. Next is going to be the recoil spring assembly. Spray down, scrub it up. After I'm done scrubbing, you guessed it, pipe cleaner. Boom. Let's put it around there, give it a good twist. We're done. So after we finish with this, I'm going to move on to the barrel. So when you clean the barrel, make sure you do it a few times. I pass the brush through it 5 times or so. I raise it up to some light, preferably if you have a white background. You could look through your barrel and see if you got everything. All the carbon is out of there. And you'll see a nice clean finish and a good spiral. So give it a good spray on the outside, inside. Give it a scrub with the brush. There you go, boom. Bore cleaner. I like these, too simple. Just put it on there, has the brush and the cloth built in. Pull it through. And I do that, 5 times until it's actually nice and clean inside there. So we're almost done here. Next thing we're going to be the trigger housing and the connector. And we're going to have to separate those two. Be very careful when you're prying these apart not to bend your connector. All right. So here we go. Taking off my trigger assembly. There goes the trigger bar. The housing. And as you can see, that little shiny metal piece that's going diagonal, that is going to be your connector. And I am going to pry it with my Glock punch. All right, prying the connector out. Be nice and careful. Make sure I don't bend it. It's a stubborn little guy. Brand new gun. Just be patient. Don't get frustrated. There we go. Bam. Done with that little guy. Put him to the side. And now what do we do? You guessed it. More cleaning. Wipe it down. Spray. Brush. Wipe it down some more. That's what we're going to be doing. So when you're cleaning your firearm, make sure you have a good place to do it at, like these mats that we have. We sell these currently at our website. They're very good. We have extra stitching on the side so it doesn't peel up like all the others. And it's good because if you're like me, you like to spray an abundance of solution and it just absorbs and doesn't get everywhere. So yeah, go to our website, bullseye-precision.com, and get yours there. So right now I'm just brushing the trigger bar. That's going to be a key thing to do when we do our polish job. Or also you might have heard it called 25-cent trigger job. That's what we're going to be doing later. I'll go over what that entails once we get to that part. Right now we're just going to make sure everything is nice and clean, so we're not just pushing around all of the dirt when we're trying to polish. All right. All right, we're done with that. Now we need to get ready for our polishing. So when you do your polish, I recommend using a Dremel. With the Dremel, you can use some Flitz. Try not to put too much of that Flitz on there, because if you do and you're like me, it's going to spray everywhere. So do it accordingly. All right, start little, then do as much as you need. Accidents do happen. It's all right. That's cool. But the reason why we're doing this polish job or 25-cent trigger job is ideally just to get a smoother trigger right out the box. Because if you don't do this, it's going to take 500 rounds, 1,000 rounds to put through your gun, and then your trigger is going to get a little bit smoother, all right, without putting a new one in there. So doing this, the purpose is just to polish it and not to take off any metal. So make sure when you're polishing not to go too crazy, especially around the edges. We don't want to deform the metal or misshapen it, okay? So take your time, clean it up with the polish, wipe it, do it a few times. So you want like a little mirror finish, nice and smooth, because when we actually use this firearm, it's gonna be metal on metal, you know, on contact. And when we pull that trigger, we want it to be smoother. So when you're doing it smoother, it's gonna get rid of all those waves out of the metal, and it's gonna be nice and smooth like glass. So, where to polish, you may be asking. There is typically 4 places that you want to polish. It's going to be your safety plunger, your connector, firing pin, and your trigger bar, all right? So right now, we are polishing the connector. Just make sure that's good. And depending on who you ask, you only have to do certain portions of these items. Typically, for me, I'm already there. My gun's broken down. It's not going to hurt it. I'm going to clean it all up, all right? If it's metal, I'm going to polish it. I'm just going to be very careful and not overdo it. That's what you have to look out for. And if you're polishing next to the polymer, these plastic pieces, like that black part, be very careful, because this does heat up and then you will melt that polymer, okay? So be very careful when you're doing it around the plastic. So, with the Dremel, I like to use Q-tips also. So if it's in tight spots where I don't want to get too close and take those chances on melting it, I'll use the Q-tip. Just go old school and use a Q-tip. Right there, wiping it down, make sure it's good. It's good. Go to my trigger bar. Already have some Flitz on it. Give it a little rub. Yep, want some more? There you go. All right, that part right there where I'm putting it on, give you the cross part, crucifix, some people call it. That is one specific area that you want to hit if you do not want to do everything. You want to hit this part, top, bottom, sides, everything, okay? Because that's what's going to be rubbing on the connector. But if you're like me, treat it all the same. If it's metal, give it a polish. It doesn't hurt. So take your time, polish it, wipe it down, inspect it. If it needs more, polish it again. I like to get inside those little nicks and crannies right there, right in between that trigger bar. OCD, I need to do everything. So the tricky part is getting up close to that trigger without melting it. So when you get really close to that polymer, take some time, use a little Q-tip, and do a manual rub. Done with that. Wiping it down, give it a visual inspection. So the connector's going back in there. Nice, shiny, brand new. Put it in the trigger bar. As you can see, once I get this on here, you can see where the two metal pieces meet. Right there, the friction, where it's going to go up and down. Now that it's polished, it should be nice and smooth. Next thing we're going to be going to is going to be the firing pin safety. Be careful, this thing is small. Like I said, time and time again, you can lose these small pieces, so be very careful, all right? Put some Flitz on it. Take your Dremel to it. It's a very small piece. Hold on to it tight. And just give it a good polish. All right, finished with that. Next, we're gonna get the firing pin. I like to use the slide for a base where I put the firing pin on and I push down on the spring. It's a lot easier to disassemble. As you can see, I did it pretty quickly. Right here, I call it like the shoe of the firing pin, the base, whatever you want to call it. That is going to be a good part to polish. That's a must, along with the head, the tip. But you already heard me. If you're already doing it, do everything. So I'm doing everything. I'm making it a bling bling gun. All right. So just be very careful at the tip right there at that head of it, because that's what's going to strike the primer. You don't want to misshapen or take any metal off of that, because you don't want light primer strikes or any malfunctions when you are actually needing to use your pistol. So we're done with that. Just reassemble it. This is the tricky part where the spring can get out of your hand. So take your time. All right, finishing up with that, I want to cover up all my stuff, and then I'm going to start with the undercut. So with the undercut, I like to do a very basic undercut. I like to keep it almost OEM and just get a higher purchase on my firearm. So I take just the appropriate amount off, that where it still looks stock and it fits all my holsters properly, but it allows me to grab my pistol higher up on that slide. So it's more recoil management. When I'm done with that, I like to put a little Flitz on it and do a little polish. It might be unnecessary, I don't know, it just cleans it up, makes it look nicer. And there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat, so you know, if someone else does it a different way, I'm sure they can do it that way. This is just the way I do it. If you like it, hey, go for it. So when I'm done with this, what are we going to do next? You got it. We're going to reassemble, all right? So with reassembly, it's going to be the same thing as disassembly, but guess what? We're going to do reverse order, all right? So let's see. After this, we're going to take off my dirty old rag, and we use that dirty rag to what? Yes, protect everything from all this spitting Flitz and polymer and what have you. So now, got my slide. Going to put in my firing pin safety. Cool. Extractor is going to be next. After extractor, it's going to be your extractor decompression spring. Then your firing pin. That's right. Slide cover plate's next. Push in your firing pin, slide it in. Use your punch to push in the extractor depressor spring. And there you go. That's in. Next thing you can do is put in your barrel. Got your spring. There. Done with the slide. Next, we're going to move to the receiver. Check your receiver out. Make sure everything is out of there. No debris. Put in your trigger housing. Cool. Fits good. It's clean. You're happy. Next thing we're going to do is going to move to your slide stop lever. We're going to slide that bad boy in there. After that, we're going to put in the locking block, all right? There goes that locking block. Next, we're going to have to put the pins in. So first, we're going to put in your trigger housing pin. That's the one in the back. After that, you're going to put in your trigger pin. That's the one next to your trigger, all right? Right there. I like to push mine in with my punch, just the back end of the punch. Too easy. So when you're done with this, we're going to put the slide on, do a functions check, of course, making sure your firearm is clear, no ammunition magically popped up in there. Or just slide to the rear, pull the trigger to the rear, so you hear the click, charge your slide to the rear again, release your trigger, hear that click on the wall. Everything should be nice and smooth, and that's it. We did a disassembly, cleaning, polish, and undercut.